Hello and welcome or welcome back to the Import Export Hub channel, everybody. Biased and boring Bogdan here, your host for the next 10 minutes or so. Thanks for joining in. I hope that you are all doing great. And guys, without prolonging this intro too much, let's dive into the topic here. As I've prepared 5 products that are worth considering importing from Portugal, 5 products that have a competitive advantage, especially if we consider the country of origin as a source of such competitive advantage. But anyways, let's dive into the data here. And my first recommendation comes from heading 6302, Bedlinen, Tableware, and the like. And we see that in 2022, Portugal's exports from this heading amounted to some $654 million, with the United States, France, and Spain as the main destination, which were followed by others like, I don't know, the United Kingdom or Italy, to mention just a couple from this top 10 list. Overall, the top 10 partners make up for some 86.3% cumulatively, pretty concentrated if you ask me. Relative to the year-on-year dynamics, we have almost 10% contraction in relative terms and some $72 million in absolute ones, with only 3 countries from this top 10 list registering a year-on-year positive change. So Spain with $11.5 million, and then we have Canada and Switzerland with smaller figures, but nonetheless positive, while on the opposite side we have the United States and France, who cumulatively had some $48 million fewer imports from Portugal from this heading, if we compare to the figures coming from 2021, which is pretty important. As for the main drivers, well, towards the United Kingdom we have a Bedlinen of cotton, so we're talking about subheading 630231, while towards Switzerland, Portugal's main export driver was subheading 630260, so toilet and kitchen linen. Moving now to my second recommendation, we have here heading 6912, tableware, kitchenware, and other household articles, with $298 million overall exports for 2022, 5% more than in 2021, with the United States, here Germany and France as the main destinations, which were followed by others like, I don't know, the Netherlands, Spain, or Canada. We see that overall these top 10 partners make up for roughly 87% in what concerns the export concentration. The United States alone having more or less 21%, or some $62.5 million worth of imports, if I were to put a dollar figure to the percentage for 2022. In what concerns the year-on-year dynamics and changes, as I've said, we have 5% positive change, some $14 million in absolute terms, with a 50-50 split, if you want, in this top 10 list, at least, in terms of expansion or contraction. And guys, I will focus only on the biggest absolute changes. So in terms of contraction, the United States had the largest one, some $4.2 million, while in terms of expansion, we have $10.2 million more exports towards Germany. As for the main export drivers, well, for both Germany and Sweden, we have the same subheading, so 691200, and we're talking about tableware, kitchenware, or other household articles of ceramics or other than porcelain or china. Now, jumping to my third recommendation, we have here heading 6304, articles of interior furnishing, and we see that in 2022, Portugal's exports from this heading amounted to almost $47 million. The United States again dominating in what concerns both the absolute and relative figures. Then we have Spain, and on the third spot we have France with some $4.1 million. But as you can see here, the top 10 partners include also, I don't know, countries like Canada, Germany, or Denmark. The last one importing some $934,000 worth of goods from this heading in 2022. Relative to the year-on-year changes, we have 2.8% expansion, some $1.3 million in absolute terms. Germany here had the biggest absolute contraction year-on-year, some $943,000, while on the other side, the Netherlands had the largest expansion with $1.1 million. And speaking of Netherlands, we see that subheading 630492 drove most of the imports from Portugal, while subheading 630419 drove the exports towards Italy here. So we're talking about bedspreads of all types of textile materials. And now moving to my next recommendation for you guys, we have here the data for heading 9603. So we're talking about brooms, brushes, and the likes with an upward trend from 2020 onwards. And basically we see that in 2022 the overall exports from this heading amounted to some $18.8 million. Let's round it up to $19 million. Almost 9% more in relative terms, comparing to the figures coming from the previous year, so 2021, with Germany, Spain, and the United States as the main destinations, which were followed by others like, I don't know, Angola, France, or Cabo Verde, to mention again just a couple from this top 10 list. Overall, the export concentration, again, relative to these 10 partners, is around 92%. Again, very concentrated. Fortunately for the Portuguese manufacturers working in this industry, there were only 2 partners in this top 10 list who had contractions. So the largest one, Germany, had 15% in relative terms and some $902,000 in absolute ones. And also Cabo Verde with some $108,000. But let's face it, these figures were cancelled, if you want, overall by the strong performances coming from the United States and Angola. And speaking of Angola and the United States, I will tell you also what drove the exports towards these 2 countries. And we have brushes as part of machines towards the former, and mops and leather dusters towards the latter, so Angola. And guys, with this being said, I'll move now to my 5th and last recommendation for you. Have a little bit of patience and don't close the video just yet, as we have here heading 9404. So Mattress supports articles of bedding and similar furnishings. Overall in 2022 there were some $231.5 million worth of exports, almost 13% less than in 2022, with France, Spain, and the United States as the main destinations. But we have other important ones in this top 10 list, like, I don't know, Chile or Taiwan, to name just 2. And again, we have a big export concentration, almost 91% of Portugal's exports from this heading being directed towards just 10 partners. In what concerns the year-on-year changes, as I've mentioned, the exports shrunk with 13%, almost $33.4 million in absolute terms, as the main partners decreased their volumes, as we can see in the figures concerning France and Spain, even though Italy, Chile, or Taiwan also had positive absolute changes above the $2 million mark. And lastly, in what concerns the main drivers, and guys, with this I promise I will end my video. For both France and Taiwan, here we have the same subheading 940429. So we're talking about mattresses fitted with springs or stuffed or internally filled with any material, excluding cellular, rubber or plastic, water mattresses, and also excluding the water pillows. And guys, with this being said, that's all for today. Thanks for watching. I really hope that you've liked it. Don't forget to hit whatever button you like below this video. And as usual, until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.